I moved into the house on a normal Tuesday. Nothing felt wrong at first. It was a quiet street, small yards, and cars parked neatly in their driveways. I was 26 years old and starting a new job, so this place felt like a fresh start. I was alone, but I didn't mind that. I actually liked the silence. The first night was normal. I ate dinner. I showered. I laid in bed and scrolled on my phone. The house made a few small noises, like any old house does. Pipes ticking. Wood expanding. I didn't think much of it. The second night felt normal too. That's when I noticed something small. The hallway light was on when I woke up. I clearly remembered turning it off before sleeping. I stood in the doorway for a few seconds, trying to think if I had forgotten. I told myself it was nothing. I turned the light off and went to work. A few days later, I noticed something else. The front door felt heavier. It's hard to explain, but when I grabbed the handle, it felt like the door had been moved more than I realized. Like it had been opened wider while I was gone. I checked the lock. It was still locked. I told myself I was overthinking it. Then small sounds started at night. Soft sounds. Slow sounds. Not loud enough to scare me. Just quiet enough to make me pay attention. A short scrape in the hallway. A faint bump against the wall. A slow click from the kitchen. Every time I checked, nothing was there. I started walking more carefully at night. I started listening more. I didn't turn the TV up as loud. I didn't wear headphones anymore. I wanted to hear everything. One night, around 2 a.m., I woke up without knowing why. The house was silent. Too silent. I stayed still and listened. That's when I heard it. Breathing. Not mine. It was slow and controlled. Like someone trying to breathe quietly. I froze in bed and stared at the ceiling. I didn't move. I didn't sit up. I didn't even blink. The sound stopped. I told myself it came from outside. From the street. From a passing car. From inside my house. But I still didn't sleep. The next morning I checked every room. Nothing was missing. Nothing looked broken. Nothing looked wrong. But the air felt different. Heavy. Close. That's when I understood the small, disturbing hint. I wasn't alone in that house. And whatever was there didn't want to be seen. The house was small but clean. It was a single-story home in a quiet neighborhood in Indiana. The street had tall trees, wide sidewalks, and driveways lined with mailboxes. Most of the houses looked the same. Brick walls. White doors. Small porches. It felt safe. It felt normal. I had moved there because I got a new job. After college, I was hired at a warehouse about 20 minutes away. I didn't know anyone in the city, so I wanted a place that was quiet and cheap. I found the house through a rental website. The landlord showed it to me during the daytime. Everything looked fine. There were 2 bedrooms. One was mine. The other one stayed empty. There was a small kitchen with old cabinets. The living room had beige carpet and a large window that faced the street. The bathroom was narrow but clean. There was also a small hallway that connected everything. At the end of that hallway was a door that led to a backyard. The air inside the house felt still. Not bad. Just quiet. It was late fall when I moved in. The weather was getting colder. In the evenings, the sky turned dark earlier, and the wind sounded louder than it should have. Sometimes tree branches scraped against the windows, but that felt normal. I lived alone.
No roommate. No pets.
No visitors. I didn't want to be distracted. I worked long shifts, came home tired, and tried to relax. After work, I usually cooked simple food, watched TV, and went to bed early. The neighbors kept to themselves. On the left was an older man who watered his plants every morning. On the right was a family with 2 cars and loud kids during the day. Nobody bothered me. Nobody asked questions. It felt like the kind of place where nothing serious ever happened. I didn't see anything strange at first. The doors locked properly. The windows closed tight. The floors didn't creak much. The air conditioner worked. The heater worked. The lights worked. Everything felt reliable. That's why I felt comfortable. That's why I let my guard down. At night, the street stayed quiet. There was no traffic noise. No loud music.
No shouting.
Just wind distant dogs barking, and the soft hum of electricity inside the walls. It felt like isolation. Not a dangerous kind, just an empty kind. I was only there because I needed somewhere cheap and close to work. I didn't have a deep emotional connection to the place. It was just shelter. A roof. For walls. That mattered later. At the time, it just felt like a normal situation. A normal house. A normal life. A normal quiet place to sleep. And I thought nothing could happen there. It started with small things that were easy to ignore. The first thing I noticed was the sound. Late at night, when everything else was quiet, I would hear a soft thud somewhere in the house. It wasn't loud. It wasn't violent. It sounded like someone accidentally bumping into a wall. I told myself it was the pipes or the wood settling like old houses do. Then I started hearing it more often. It would come from different places. The hallway. The kitchen. Behind my bedroom wall. I started turning the lights on when I moved through the house. Not because I was scared. Just because it felt easier. A few nights later, I noticed the air felt different. When I walked down the hallway, it felt colder. Not cold like broken heating. Just cold like the air had been moved recently. Like someone had walked through it. I didn't tell anyone.
I didn't want to sound crazy.
Then the lights started acting strange. The bathroom light would flicker for half a second when I turned it on. It didn't go out. It just blinked. I checked the bulb. It was tight. I told myself One evening, I came home from work and felt something was off. The house smelled different. Not bad. Not good. Just different. Like air that had been trapped and suddenly released. I checked the windows. They were locked. I checked the doors. They were locked. I checked every room. Nothing was missing. But the feeling stayed. Then I noticed the sounds weren't random anymore. They had a pattern. They happened when I turned the lights off. They happened when I laid in bed. They happened when the house was quiet enough for me to hear my own breathing. I started walking slower. I started holding my breath sometimes, just to listen. That's when I heard something new. Footsteps. Not loud footsteps. Not fast footsteps. Slow footsteps. They sounded careful, like someone trying not to make noise. I stood still in the kitchen and listened. The sound stopped. I waited. Nothing. But my chest felt tight. At night, I started sleeping with my bedroom door partially closed. I didn't lock it. I just liked the feeling of a barrier. A small one. Something between me and the hallway. Then one night I saw something. The light in the living room was on. I was sure I had turned it off. I stood in the doorway and stared at it for a long time. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I just stared. I turned it off slowly. That was the first time I felt it clearly. That quiet understanding. That something wasn't right. And whatever it was, it felt close. After that, I stopped feeling safe inside my own house. The sounds were no longer small and random. They felt close. They felt intentional. Every night, around the same time, I would hear slow movement in the hallway. It didn't sound like normal house noise anymore. It sounded controlled, like someone trying to move without being noticed. I started checking the locks more than once. I checked the front door. I checked the back door. I checked the windows. Everything was locked. Every time. But the feeling stayed. One night, I was sitting on the couch watching TV. The volume was low. The room was dark except for the screen. I heard a soft click from the hallway. The TV didn't make that sound. I muted it and listened. Slow breathing. It was faint, but it was real. I didn't move. I just sat there, staring at the dark hallway. The sound stopped when I tilted my head, like whoever it was had noticed I was listening. That scared me more than the sound itself. Another night, I saw movement. Out of the corner of my eye, something shifted at the end of the hallway. I turned my head quickly. Nothing was there, but I felt it, like someone had been standing there and moved away. The shape was wrong. Too tall. Too narrow. It didn't feel like a shadow. It felt like a person. I started sleeping with my phone in my hand. I also started sleeping with the bedroom light on. I felt trapped. The house felt smaller. The walls felt closer. The air felt heavy. One evening, the power went out. Not the whole neighborhood. Just my house. Every light went black. The air conditioner stopped. The fan stopped. Everything went quiet. Too quiet. That's when I heard footsteps clearly.
Not above me.
Not far away. Right outside my bedroom door. Slow. Careful. Deliberate. I sat up in bed. I didn't yell. I didn't move. I just listened. The footsteps stopped right at my door. I heard a soft scratch against the wood. Then another. Then slow breathing. Right on the other side. I started shaking. My heart was so loud, I thought whoever was outside could hear it. I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight. The light pointed straight at the door. I could see the handle clearly.
It moved.
Just slightly. But enough for me to see it. Whoever was out there was trying to open it. And they were being very careful about it. That's when I knew. This wasn't the house. This wasn't pipes. This wasn't wiring. There was someone inside my home. And they weren't leaving. My body froze when the door handle moved. I didn't. The power was still out. The only light in the room came from my phone. The door started to slowly creak open. Whoever was on the other side was careful. They were trying not to make noise. I slipped off the bed and stepped backwards slowly. I didn't want the floor to creak. I moved toward the closet and stepped inside. I pulled the door shut, but not all the way. I left a small crack so I could see. The bedroom door opened wider. I saw a shape in the dark hallway.
A man.
I could only see his outline. He was tall. He moved slowly. He didn't turn on the lights. He didn't rush. He walked like he had done this before. He stepped into my room. I held my breath. He stood a few feet away from the closet. I could hear his breathing clearly now. It was calm.
Too calm.
He lifted something in his hand. I couldn't see what it was. He walked toward my bed and touched the mattress. Slowly, like he was checking if I had been there. My hands were shaking so badly, I almost dropped my phone. That's when a floorboard cracked. Right under my foot. The sound was loud in the silence. He stopped moving. He turned his head toward the closet. I knew he heard it. He stepped closer. One slow step. Then another. I pressed my mouth shut with my hand, so I wouldn't make a sound. He stopped right in front of the closet door. I could see his shoes through the crack.
Dirty. Worn.
Too close. He placed his hand on the closet door. I could hear my heartbeat in my ears. Then, suddenly, there was a loud bang from the front of the house. It came out of nowhere. The man froze. He turned quickly and moved toward the hallway. I didn't know what the noise was. I didn't care. I opened the closet and ran. I ran past the bed. I ran down the dark hallway. I ran straight out of the back door barefoot. The cold air hit my face. I didn't stop running until I reached the neighbor's yard. I called 911 with shaking hands. I could hear movement inside my house while I was on the phone. Footsteps. Fast this time. I didn't look back. I stayed outside until the police arrived. Blue and red lights filled the street. But I still felt like he was somewhere nearby, watching. The police searched the entire house. Every room, every closet, every corner.
They told me to stay outside while they checked.
I stood in the neighbor's yard wrapped in a blanket. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I kept staring at the front door, waiting for them to drag someone out. But they didn't. After about 15 minutes, one of the officers walked toward me. His face looked serious, but calm. He told me they didn't find anyone inside. That didn't make sense to me.
I knew what I saw.
I knew what I heard. So I walked inside with them. The power had somehow come back on. The lights were working again. The house looked normal. Too normal. Like nothing had happened. That's when they showed me something. Behind my bedroom wall, there was a small opening I never noticed before. It was hidden behind an old vent cover that had been painted over. An officer pulled it off. There was space behind the wall. Not just space.
A narrow passage.
It ran between the walls. Just wide enough for a person to crawl through. They shined a flashlight inside. And they found things. A dirty blanket. Empty food wrappers. Water bottles. A small flashlight. Someone had been living inside the walls. The officer told me that the house had been empty for months before I moved in. Whoever it was must have found a way inside during that time. They had been hiding there, watching me, listening to me, learning my routine. Then they found something else. At the end of the passage, there was a small crawlspace door that led to the attic. And inside the attic, they found a backpack. Inside that backpack was a kitchen knife from my own house. I never reported anything missing, because I never noticed it was gone. The police said the man had escaped. There was a broken vent cover near the laundry room leading outside. Fresh scratches around. He had been in my house for days. Maybe longer. He had been watching me sleep, watching me walk through the hallway, watching me lock the doors. The truth hit me slowly. He wasn't breaking in. He was already inside. And he had been there long before I ever heard him. I moved out of the house a week later. I didn't pack much.
I didn't sort things.
I just threw what I could into boxes and left. I didn't want to stay there any longer than I had to. The landlord didn't ask many questions. He just changed the locks and let me break the lease. I thought leaving would make me feel safe. It didn't. For a while, things felt normal again. I found a small apartment in a busier area. I lived around more people, more noise, more lights. I thought being around others would help. But something inside me stayed different. At night, I still listened. I slept lighter. I woke up easier. I noticed every small sound. Sometimes, when the apartment was quiet, I could hear my own breathing, and it would remind me of that night. Of slow breathing in the dark. Of footsteps in the hallway. Then small things started happening again. Not big things. Small ones. A cabinet door I didn't remember opening. My shoes not placed the way I left them. A light that felt like it had been on longer than I thought. I told myself it was stress. I told myself it was trauma. I told myself I was imagining things. One night, I checked my phone before going to sleep. There was a notification. A security camera alert. I froze. I didn't have security cameras inside my apartment. Only outside. The video clip loaded slowly. It showed my front door. Nothing moved. Nothing strange. Until the very end. For just 1 second. The doorknob moved slightly. Like someone on the other side tested it. I stared at the screen for a long time. I didn't call the police. I didn't open the door. I didn't turn on the lights. I just sat there, silent. Listening. Sometimes when I go to bed now, I don't lock the door. Not because. But because part of me feels like it doesn't matter. If someone wants to get in, they already know how. And sometimes, late at night, when everything is quiet, I feel like someone is standing on the other side of my door, waiting. And I still don't know if it's the same man, or if it ever really left.